So
Wow.
all of the research that I did was from the female perspective.
Okay.
Alright.
Because most ballet dancers are female.
That makes sense.
So,
Sick.
but yeah, I loved it.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, Drake.
My name is Avery Jackman.
My name is Safa Alinde.
My name is Matthew Dawkins.
My name is Susie.
My name is Aaron Perry.
Welcome back to the Youth Leaders Lounge, hearing from tomorrow's CEOs today, where we talk about the world around us with some of the greatest minds here in Toronto. This episode, we'll be talking about burnout.
So I'm currently in a burnout state where all throughout the year of 2023, I'm just continuously pumping out stuff. I do film, I teach weekly dance classes and pumping out pieces just to teach to people nowadays every week. And so I feel like I've never really learned what burnout was until I experienced it myself and had to really sift through of when to take on things versus when to not.
And so my question for you today is, have you ever experienced burnout? And what was the root cause? And how did you overcome? We'll start with perhaps Aaron first.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced burnout several times, and root causes, honestly, I think the biggest thing for me to realize was that it varies, because I think that coming up, you're assuming that you're just going to burn out from work. But I burned out from school, work, community stuff. And yeah, it's a lot of the time. I mean, like, the root cause at the end of the day is, like, sadly, it would be a lot easier if I could just, like, point hands and go, like, you're the reason I burned out. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes me taking on too much. Obviously, with work, it could be too much is put on my plate, but a lot of the time it was I'm taking on too much. I'm not listening to my body. I'm not listening to my mind. And I'm just going despite all of the warning signals. And then you're just kind of left debilitated because you didn't take the time to actually rest in segments, and now you have to take months, possibly a year or something like that, of break because you can't do anything.
No, like that, you make a good point, because the idea of self-imposed burnout is actually real, because what we know is that for those working on site at jobs or even work from home, the stats show that the majority say that the pressure that they end up leading to burnout is often sometimes self-imposed, and that's about 43% of people, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we could also argue, once again, as Susie mentioned in the last episode, cause and effect. We'll jump into a little bit later. Matthew, what was your perhaps experience with burnout?
Yeah, I'd say like very, very similar experience. I think especially as a creative, and doing that work that is very self-dependent, it really relies on me being able to push myself to extremes. And I think for me, I've always experienced burnout whenever I didn't advocate for myself, or I forgot that I was a person first. And so for me, it's always about like striking that balance and realizing that success and writing and completing the work and doing really great, and doing the next thing is always excellent and amazing, but you can't get there on a back-to-back schedule. And if you get there, chances are you won't feel fulfilled because you haven't been living your life in a meaningful way in the first place. So it's all about like getting those goals and setting those goals and like blocking out those times to work, but also blocking out those times to do the things that we're passionate about. Blocking out those times to go to therapy, blocking out those times to see friends and family. So I think really advocating for yourself outside of work and productivity is really important as well.
Self-advocacy. And yeah, like setting those boundaries at work and making that time for that work-life balance is so important. Because once again, like, you have to remember that you are human. Mm-hmm. This idea that people have to be superhuman, or this idea that you have to, be, I know often as people of color, we're, often forced to be resilient. Mm-hmm. But that work can also, I think, impose a sense of harm and also guilt for wanting to take time for ourselves. And I think I've had the opportunity at working here is understanding what the word capacity means, right? Understanding that, like, be honest with yourself. Do you have the capacity to take on other projects right now? And if you have to question it, oftentimes you don't.
Lazy, entitled quitters. Gen Z have been labeled the hardest generation to work with. But are the people born between the 90s and 2010 really that difficult? Or do they have a thing or two to teach the world about work-life balance?
In case you missed it, the generation that has popularized terms such as bare minimum Mondays, quiet quitting, and the latest lazy girl job is being required to go back to the office. I mean, we all are.
I love being a woman.
And it made me realize I don't care anymore what anybody gotta say. I'ma do me. I'ma do me.
40 hours? That's 8 hours a day. That's half the day if you factor in sleeping. When would I have time for myself?
It's not that the new generation is more difficult to work with, it's that the older generation is more difficult to work for.
From social media trends like the lazy girl job and bare minimum Monday, Generation Z is rewriting the rules of the workplace. Many are rejecting the hustle culture and current ideals of success and productivity and prioritizing life outside of work. Managers and employers say this is just Gen Z's way of opting out of responsibility. But Gen Zs say times have changed and what they expect out of their careers should too.
But sometimes we work in places that don't allow us to rethink those things, right? That allow us to give us the space to, consider our own capacity. I know there are now positions in the world now, which is so wonderful. I'm seeing in the job market where they're hiring people as, capacity builders within the workplaces so that they can now measure, their employees' work-life balances and measure their satisfaction. So I love that. And I'm going to pass the toss to you, Zappa, in terms of maybe your experience with burnout, if that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like, much like Matthew, I feel like it's as a creative, it's different, but also it's different when your creative output and outlets are what makes your income. Right. And also it's like, how can I keep producing creative ideas and how do I keep making money in that way when nothing satisfies me right now? And I feel as though I'm currently in a burnout state where all throughout the year of 2023, I'm just continuously pumping out stuff. I do film. I teach weekly dance classes and pumping out pieces just to teach to people nowadays. Every week, it's like, do I regurgitate what I'm doing again and just lower the quality? And you don't want to lower the quality. And then you also don't want to lower your capacity because you want more opportunity. So it's just very much like I'm trying to run around and trying to put my head on the spinning wheel when I can't find that balance. Yeah. And so I feel like I've never really learned what burnout was until I experienced it myself and had to really sift through of when to take on things versus when to not. Right. And it sucks when you're creative, you get the money and you make such great income because of your brain, your creative mind. But at what point does that become a consequence when you start to consequent your creativity into capitalism?
Oh, I love what you said though. Like, do I increase or minimize my capacity in order to, for opportunity?
Yeah.
Or maximize, but and that is such a key component because they're just like, we're in a state currently, folks, of like survival. Like, I don't feel like anyone's really living right now. We're just simply trying to survive, make it every single day. And in fact, like, it's a generational thing. And if I just share some stats with the audience here, is they actually do state that Gen Z, Gen X, and Boomers all cite difficulty paying bills as their top reason for feeling burnt out, while for millennials, is the lack of free time, mentioned by about 40%. A lack of paid time off, so PTO, also plays a role. So 30% of on-site workers say that this is their main reason for burnout compared to only 20% of workers. And so to follow up on those quotes, Susie, I'm curious to know, why do you think it's important then, since we know that this is a generational thing, it's not just a general statement, why do you think it's important for employers to recognize burnout in their younger employees?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think generationally, Gen Z and even late millennials have really established like an identity that they're not going to put up with bullshit. Like, I think the older generations, like, you kind of just do just because you do. But I think the newer generations, we just really feel really empowered to say no and to just like receive the things that we think we're deserving. And I think that a lot of employers will find that their younger employees will leave and like if things don't change. Like I just think that like millennials and Gen Zs, like I just think that we don't want to put up with those things anymore and that we will actually quit, which is something that employers should be concerned about.
Yeah.
And I also think like a big part of that is because we are having to live between multiple like world crises, like climate crisis, multiple wars going on right now, like food insecurity. There's so many crises, like an overdose crisis that we're having to live through. I think that we're identifying and restructuring our priorities. And if we feel like our work doesn't align to that, I think we're not afraid to leave anymore.
We're not afraid to leave anymore. I love that. Yeah. Like this idea of like loyalty was something that like, I think our generation has been very keen on the fact that just like, why would I spend time in a place where I'm not valued in the hopes, not even guarantee, but the hopes of being seen and appreciated. For, first of all, not even in also like valued in a way that actually helps sustain me. Because what I've noticed is that there's this change in position, but not a change in salary. And it's this way of getting around, I feel like, of allowing folks like, oh, well, you have a new position. That's a promotion, right? No. That's just more responsibility. That's more expectation. That's one less person that you have to hire because now I am doing two roles at the same time. We're on to you. So, you know, it's that idea once again. Yeah, it's like if you want to recognize and make your younger employers feel, you know, human, like you have to recognize that despite the fact that they may be young or new or, you know, that ageism piece of just like they're, you know, not knowledgeable yet about the world, you have to also honor the fact that they also have to have time for themselves.
Yeah.
Because, you know, also, it doesn't benefit you as an employer. Like if your employees are all burnt out, none of your deliverables are going to sustain themselves. None of your projects are going to land. And then you're going to have employees who are exhausted, right? And where's the productivity in that? I feel like that feels like common sense, but I feel like it's not common sense.
And sorry, I wanted to add, having pizza days or one day mental health days or field trip days do not help. Maybe. I could be wrong. But I don't believe they help, right? And especially me coming from a freelancer perspective where I can technically make my own schedule versus like a medical perspective where there's literally as medical professionals who are often telling people to take care of their health, but they don't even get the benefit. Lack of sleep, consistent hours, on call all the time. What it doesn't really make sense to like what are you trying to portray and put out there, but then also making your healthcare providers not do that. But sorry, that was another side thing. But things that companies do nowadays, I feel like don't help or aren't at it. Like we mentioned in previous episodes, it's not a good holistic approach. And I'm going to keep using that term because it resonated with me really well. I just feel like there are better approaches that are now being developed or has been developed that could be practiced more than the ones that they're implementing now.
I think what you're saying is that the reasons why those things like the one day pizza day or whatever don't work is because they feel like Band-Aid solutions.
Exactly.
And I think what we're looking for is like more institutional and systemic approaches, like a holistic one, like a person-centered one that Matthew mentioned earlier, because that's where the like lasting change will be.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I think a lot of times when we set these very clear boundaries and Gen Z and late millennials, I think to employers, it almost always comes off as like complaining, I think, to them. And I wanted to really hammer that home because I feel like the gravity of the situation isn't taken seriously either. I think as employers, you should be scared if all your like younger employees are leaving, because I think it's like our fresh perspective that brings the innovation, that brings the new idea, that brings the creativity, that allows your company to grow and move forward in an increasingly, like I want to say, progressive and like rapidly changing society. We're the folks that are most adept at AI. We're the folks most in touch with social issues. And we're the folks with the ideas and the perspective that will help your company grow. So you should be taking these concerns really, really seriously. They're valid, and they're causing you to lose one of the most valuable workforces that you have in your entire company. So
that's our topic on burnout. Join us next week as we talk about leadership. Until then, take care. Bye.